I'm Kaylin King, Jonathan's wife, and I am a yoga instructor. We're going to talk today a little bit about the style of yoga that I practice and teach. It's called the Iyengar method. So I'll tell you a little bit of my story. I began studying yoga about 6 years ago, and my mom took me to my first yoga class, and at the time I worked at a full-time office position, and I sat in a chair and worked on the computer all day. And so my neck and shoulders were really tight, and my low back and hips were really tight. And I just had this heightened level of stress all the time, just from being in that environment. So I found that it was a great way to relax and to start working through those aches and pains and to take care of myself. In 2012 is when I started my teacher training. And at the same time, I began an exercise and movement science degree at MSU. So with my teacher training, I actually studied with 3 different senior teachers, both here in Springfield and then one in Kansas City. And the way we do it with the Iyengar tradition is you kind of study with one person at a time, and you really get to know like their style, and they teach you like more on a one-on-one basis. And so you have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions and really like develop your own like specialty, which is really cool. And then with my degree program, I learned a lot about anatomy and physiology and what the body does, especially in these yoga poses. So that really helped me have like a more rounded approach to my practice. And then while I was training, I became pregnant with our 2.5-year-old Emerson. And so that kind of shifted my focus from just those of like, general yoga practice to more of like motherhood-based stuff and just helping support mothers and doing some prenatal work. And then in the fall of 2013, I began teaching at the studio that I'm at now. And I teach motherhood-specific classes like prenatal and mommy and me, and then we do some postnatal stuff too. It's really fun. And then I also teach level 1 classes, and then I recently started a plus size class, which is really cool and fun. So that's a little about me. So this is what people think of whenever they think of yoga, right? Like I just Google image searched yoga, and this is like 3 of the pictures that came up, which is really like interesting to me because there are some studios in town that will promote this kind of yoga, but that's not necessarily my practice or what I do. So this is not what you will encounter whenever we do yoga. So don't worry. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So the Iyengar method, like I was saying, it's a little different. There's some principles that we try to focus on, and the first one is that yoga is for everybody. So we don't focus on like one specific like gender or body type or age. We have students of all shapes and sizes and ages and ailments, from little old ladies with scoliosis to runners who like have shin splints and need help with that. So we cover the broad range of things. Another thing that is kind of become apparent in the yoga community is the whole like Instagram, Facebook yoga pose, where you see these people in these like crazy poses like the ones I just showed you. And that's not what real yoga looks like. That's not what real yoga is whenever you start off. And so we strive to meet people where they actually are in their current body and help them work on themselves. So, and then the final thing, people get confused a lot and they think that yoga is a religion or a religious practice. And while there are like some elements that could help you with your spirituality or further your own religious like beliefs, it's not specific to any religion. And there's no like yoga god or book of yoga or anything like that. So this is the person who the Iyengar method is named after. It's BKS Iyengar. And he actually passed away last year at the age of 96. And he's from India. And he's the reason why our studio is different. Whenever he was young, He suffered a few different diseases. He had malaria and things that left him really, really weak and frail. And he came from a long line of yoga teachers, but because he was so weak and frail and unable to do the poses, they kind of discarded him and told him to go practice with the women, which makes me laugh. It's like, okay. But even with the women, he was kind of put in the corner and said, figure it out, like do it by yourself, like we're not gonna teach you. And so he developed all of these ways to help him do the poses without coming into the full extension. So he developed things like blocks and bolsters and blankets, and he would use those things to help him get into the pose and find the benefit of the pose without going into like the full extension. So he's noted for bringing yoga to the West, and because of his situation where he was with the group of women, he like surpassed all of them with his training eventually after he had developed ways for him to get into the poses, and ended up teaching them as groups. And he was the first person to actually teach yoga in groups like what we do over here in the West. So it was a really interesting guy. So a little more about props. They just make yoga accessible to everyone. So we use blocks, which are just these things. Blocks and bolsters and blankets and straps. We have chairs, and we also have these things called wall ropes at our studio. And basically just ropes in the wall with a big eye bolt. But they allow us to modify traditional poses. So these poses that you see people doing the full extension of, like, a full back bend. We use chairs and bolsters and blankets to help people who don't have that flexibility or strength yet get into a very similar version of that pose. So it allows you to have the benefit without going into like a full extension, which can cause injury whenever you're not to that point yet. So yeah, it allows us to customize each pose to individual needs, and then it allows us to diminish the risk of injury through the attainment of proper alignment, which is really important. So this is our studio, what to expect in an Iyengar studio. All of our teachers are very knowledgeable. We're all very focused on like the actual like body muscles and bones and what is happening in your body whenever you're doing a yoga pose. And we've all had extensive training, and the studio owner, he's been teaching for about 10 years, and he's in RYT 500, and he knows lots of awesome stuff. Worked in hospitals for their therapy division, so he's very knowledgeable. Another thing you can expect is just to have an individualized practice. So we're not just going to treat everyone in the classroom the same. If you can't bend down and touch your toes, we're going to give you a block. If you can't touch the block, we're going to give you a chair. If you can't touch the chair, we're going to ask you to use the wall. Like, we really strive to have everyone in a comfortable position and to be able to do their version of the pose. Another thing you can expect is communication. We always ask you, how's this pose feel? Like, what is your body telling you in this pose? And ask you to let us help you with a modification if need be. So we really strive for it to be a safe environment for you to work on your body where it is at this point. So why should you do yoga? And the answer to that is complicated. Like, only you can really answer that. For different people, it means different things. People come to yoga class for different reasons. For me, for instance, whenever I started, I wanted to continue coming to yoga because I hurt, because my neck hurt and my back hurt, and I was really stressed, and that was my main focus. And then I became pregnant with Emerson. It was like, okay, well, now my focus is different. Now I need to prepare for labor and birth, and I need to take care of my body, and I need to rest and relax. And so that became my focus. So at different times in your life, and depending on your physical activity or ailments or injuries, your purpose for going to yoga may be different. But here's just a few benefits of practicing: increased flexibility, strength, and balance, of course. A greater emotional well-being, and then decreased stress, anxiety, and depression, which is really cool. Not many physical activity things can cite so many emotional and mental benefits as well. Also, yoga is a great complement to your traditional exercise like weightlifting and cardio, and physical therapy and injury rehab. Okay, so to get started, you don't have to go to a class to benefit from yoga. And yoga can be really, really simple, and you can do these things at your desk. So I'm going to show you some things that you can do at your desk, and I want you to participate. I have things to give you if you participate. So everyone, go ahead and grab their strap, and it has rubber bands on it, so you can take that off.
I think there's some new people that don't have a strap.
Oh, yep. I won't throw it at you because I'll probably hit you in the face. I don't have very good aim. Yeah. So, as you guys know, whenever you sit in a chair most of the time, all day, your shoulders tend to hunch forward, and your shoulders come up to your ears, and your neck is tight, and your shoulders are tight, and your hips and low back hurt. And, you know, whenever you're in a stressful environment, you get more anxious and more stressed as the day goes on. So it's important to take little breaks and do some things for stress reduction, and then I'm going to show you some things that you can do for your shoulders and for your low back. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just focusing on your breath, just doing like some belly breaths, which is really simple. Basically, you just, as you inhale, you puff the belly out. And then as you exhale, you bring the belly back towards the spine. And you do like 5 to 10 rounds of that. And the point is just to focus in on the breath, relax, chill out for a second, clear your mind. Another thing that you can do are shoulder rolls, which are really fun. Everybody needs to participate in this one. So as you inhale, you bring your shoulders up to your ears, and then squeeze them back behind you, and then exhale and roll the shoulders all the way down. And then do that 2 or 3 times.
You don't hear stuff cracking, is that normal?
Yes, very normal. Yes, good. And that just reverses the action that we're in all day with our hands on our keyboards, with the shoulders forward and the tension in the neck. So that just encourages us to keep our shoulders away from our ears, to keep our neck soft. And then this one's really fun. If you have like 2 minutes and like your boss isn't looking at you, this is called like the de-stress acupressure point, and it's right between your eyebrows. And so if you stack your hands on top of each other, you guys don't have to do this one right now, but get your knuckles to hit right in that spot, and then just go ahead and lay your head down on your desk and just stay there for like 2 minutes. Tell your boss if he's around, like, hey, I'm doing yoga, okay? Just give me a second. But this point actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system and asks our body to calm down and chill out, which is really cool. Okay, so some stuff for tight shoulders and neck, which I'm sure you all have experienced. So strap stretches. So go ahead and take your strap. You're going to take it nice and wide, especially if you have tight shoulders. If you're right next to someone, you might want to stagger so that we don't hit someone in the face.
If someone's watching someone and they don't have a strap?
Yes, you can use a belt or a scarf or even like the end of a broomstick handle. You can use all of those things. Yes. So we're going to start by just taking the strap up above our head and hold on to it nice and tight. Good. And then notice how our shoulders want to come up to our ears. So bring the shoulders down away from the ears. Now squeeze the shoulder blades together behind you and pull out on the strap. Yeah. Good. And we want it right above our heads for right now. Good. And make sure you're sitting up nice and tall in your chair. Good. And then the next one, we're going to take it back behind us. Yeah. So start here. Just stretch through the strap, and then we take it back behind us like this. And we're going to roll the palms up.
How wide should your grip
as wide as it needs to be. It's all varying on your flexibility. Good. And then bring it back up. And then you can take one arm up and one arm back and just pull through the strap. Good. Yep. And then all the way up. And switch sides. Good. And then one more time, we're going to take it back behind. So we want our palms at shoulder level, and then we want to roll the palms up towards the ceiling. Good, and you'll notice that stretches pretty good right between the shoulder blades and on the neck. Awesome. So yes, that's strap stretches. You can put your strap on. A few other things that you can do. This one's called eagle arms, and there's a leg version, or there's like a full extension of the pose where you use your legs too, but this is just the arms. So you're going to take your right hand and extend it like this at a right angle. Good. And then we're going to take our left arm, we're going to scoop it underneath. Good. And get the elbows to touch. And then we're going to try and take the left hand to the right palm. If you can't get there, that's okay. You can just touch the wrist or get as close as you can. Good. Now bring the elbows off of the body and drop the shoulders. Yep, just like that. And you'll feel that stretch all along your shoulder blades too. Yes. Good, so this is eagle arms. Good, so release. And then we'll switch sides. So left arm, and then you're gonna scoop your right arm underneath it. Yep, and then you're gonna try and get your right hand to touch your left palm. Good, and then bring the elbows away from the body and drop the shoulders down. Good. Everyone feel that stretch between their shoulder blades? Yes, yes. So this is a really, really good one for tight shoulders and neck. Good, so release. Those of you that aren't participating, you're not gonna get a t-shirt or a block. Okay, so take your strap. We're gonna take it in our right hand and drape it over your right shoulder. Good. Now, we're going to take the left hand back behind and grab the strap. Yep. And then bring your right elbow up and walk the hands towards each other as close as you can get, which might not be very far, and that's okay. Good. And then sit up nice and tall, bring the head over the spine, and pull through the strap. Yeah. Feel the stretch? Yes. Along the shoulders and the arms. Especially this left shoulder. Good. Good. So release. And then you can switch sides, taking the strap in the left hand, draping it over your left shoulder, and then grabbing it with the right hand behind. And then again, walk the fingers towards each other, and then pull through the strap. Good. And try and sit up as tall as you can. Keep the head over the spine. Good. Awesome. So release. Those are just 3 really easy things you can do for your neck and shoulders at your desk. So for lower back and hips, one of the best things you can do is a twist. So we're going to be seated in our chair. And then we're going to take our right hand back behind us onto the top rail of the chair. And then bring your left hand, if you have a handle, onto the handle. Good. And then you're pulling yourself around while keeping your knees coming in towards each other. Good. And go ahead and drop your right shoulder. Good. And you're pulling with both hands, the left and the right. Good. That's just an easy little chair twist to the other side. So again, left hand to the top rail of the chair, right hand on the arm. Good. Drop that left shoulder away from your ear while you're here. This is the alignment cues I was talking about. Good. Out you come. Okay, so the next one, any kind of forward folding is really good for low back pain. It's best if you can stand up and do it, but for our purposes, we can just stay seated. So you're going to take your knees nice and wide and scoot away from your table just a little bit. And then the focus here is to keep the spine as tall as you can. And then you're going to take your hands onto your table in front of you and just slide out in front. Good. And once you get there, check and notice, is your chest, are you doing this with your shoulders? Can you pull the shoulders down away? Yeah. Lift the chest up. Good. And you should feel that stretch all along the spine on both sides. You can do the same sort of thing standing up. You just come to a standing position, take hands to the chair, and stretch through the hamstrings. So forward folding is really good. It just increases circulation in the legs, which is nice. The next one, this is really good for hips. It's called thread the needle. And basically you just, like most men, cross their legs with the right leg up on top of the left. Good. So once you get here, try and flex your right foot, and we want it to be off of our knee on the left side, and we want our foot firmly planted, our left foot firmly planted on the floor. And then we're going to try and bring the knee down towards the floor real gently. Lift up nice and tall. This is where the stretch comes into the hips, and then lean forward slightly, keeping your chest lifted. Good. You feel that on the right side, from your right femur bone all the way across to the sacral plate. Good. Nice. Let's switch sides. So flex the foot once you get there and make sure your right foot is firmly planted on the floor, and then stretch forward. Good. And if any of you have sciatica pain, this stretch helps lengthen the muscles that go over that sciatic nerve that causes pain and irritation. So this is a really good one. Good, and then the last one that we're gonna do is just a hip flexion release. So you take your fist and you place it between your knees and you just squeeze your knees together as hard as you can for a good minute, if you can hold it that long. And lift up nice and tall. Good. And this releases by flexing the muscles. So the longer that you hold it, the more release you'll get. But then once you release, you'll notice that your hips feel a little bit more open, your low back feels a little more open. Yeah, it pulls and it's kind of strange when you're doing it. Good. So yeah, there is some stuff that you can do at your desk. Really easy, simple, help you get started with yoga. Does anybody have any questions for me? First person to ask a question gets a t-shirt. Anybody? Anybody? Nobody? Has anyone done yoga before? No? Awesome. Well, now you have. You can say you've done yoga now.
If somebody does a full session, do they tend to be sore the next couple of days, or how does that?
It depends on what we do, but you might be a little sore like the next day. It doesn't tend to last like a week or anything like that. It's not like you would be super sore after weightlifting or anything of that nature. So yeah, you get a t-shirt for asking a question. Yeah.
So do you have classes set up for different levels, or do you just do them on an individual basis?
Yeah, we have like level 1 classes, which are really good for beginners. And we have level 2 classes, and then we also have these really great yoga therapy classes. If you have like a specific injury or ailment you're working through, we kind of focus more in on those kinds of things in that class. We use a lot of props. So yeah, we have different classes for everybody's needs. Any other questions? So you get a yoga block and you have lots of cool things you can do with that.
What do I do with a yoga block?
So that thing we were just doing with our fists, you can use a block instead.
Oh.
And then whenever we were doing this thread the needle where your legs were crossed, you can put that underneath your foot that's on the floor and you'll get a deeper stretch in your low back. Yeah, there's several things you can do with it.
Well, if you had 15,000 more.
Yeah, that's true. Anybody else have questions?
So your courses, do you have an outline for your courses? I mean, how do I know what I'm getting myself into?
Yeah, so you'll come in and we normally have you take off your shoes, which is one of those weird yoga things, but we just do it to keep the floor clean. And then you'll come into the classroom and you'll pick out a yoga mat, grab a spot, and then the teacher basically walks you through the rest of the class. But we typically start on the floor with some warm-up poses, and then we'll come to standing position, go into some more deeper poses, and then at the end of class, this is my favorite part, we basically get to take a nap. So we put you in a really comfortable restorative position, and we just ask you to rest and try and clear your mind for 5 minutes, which is a really nice ending to a yoga class. So it's not as scary as you think it is. We have people of all types that come to classes. So yeah.
Does your studio do hot yoga, and what's supposed to be the benefit of that?
We do not do hot yoga. The benefits, I'm not a hot yoga instructor, so I'm probably not going to quote this exactly right. But they say that the heat helps you detoxify and it helps get the muscles warm, and so it's easier to stretch, which is fine. But I think for a certain population, it's really great if you're fit and young and in good shape and you don't have any heart issues, and if you're not sensitive to heat, or you, the biggest thing that I worry about with hot yoga is dehydration and just pushing yourself too far. And also in a hot yoga class, you can't use props. And I think that's really, really important for the majority of our population, because most of us can't bend over and touch the floor. I mean, that just doesn't happen, especially when you're starting off. So I think that, hot yoga has its place and it's really good for some people, but I don't think it fits the masses.
Is it possible to overstretch your muscles if they're warmed up too, and then?
Yeah, that's another concern, is that once you get to a certain level of warmth without your muscles actually doing anything, the nerves desensitize, so they don't fire as well. So you may overstretch and injure yourself. So
Say Nancy took a hot yoga class in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It scared her away. She doesn't want to go anymore.
Yeah, and that happens a lot too. And the instructors, the people who teach hot yoga classes, they have a different teaching regimen, and they don't spend as much time one-on-one with a specific instructor. And I don't feel like we all have this certification after our name, the RYT 200, but that can mean a wide variety of things. So it's always important to ask whatever instructor you have, like, what did your training consist of? Like, what did you actually do to get that designation after your name? Because for some people, it's just a 3-month intensive course where they go every weekend, and then it's like, okay, you're good, you're a yoga instructor now. And for our tradition, we really like for you to do more of an internship and stay with the same teacher and really learn and educate yourself on the body. So, yeah. Yes?
So you mentioned that you don't think a lot of athletic activity has as much of the emotional benefits as yoga. Why do you think how do you think yoga provides that?
Well, like I was saying, like how some people use it to help assist in their spiritual well-being or their spiritual life. Once you start doing yoga, it's kind of a hard thing to explain, but once you're in a pose that you can't focus on anything except for what your body is doing, because it's kind of intense. All I can think about right now is my hamstrings screaming at me. I'm not thinking about my to-do list or what I have to do whenever I go home. It gives you this kind of mindfulness and this meditative type environment. And so it allows you to kind of go through some stuff. Like if you're really stressed out at work, this gives you a break from that. This gives you an opportunity to reverse it, to chill out and to tune in to your own body and your own thoughts. So emotionally, I think that's the way that it helps. And it also just is me time for people. I don't think our culture takes enough time for themselves. They don't do things for their body. They don't do things to help them relax and de-stress. So I think that's a big part of it too.
How does, you mentioned your injury classes.
Mm-hmm.
How specifically does yoga aid in the injuries?
Really specifically, actually. There's a lady. Can I repeat the question?
Yeah, just because the microphone.
Oh, yeah. She just asked how our yoga therapy classes, how specific they get into like someone's injury. And in a class type setting, you'll get a lot of work in the actual injury, but we also do privates, so where you just focus in on that person's needs. But one of our little ladies, her name's Gay, but she is 83 and she has severe scoliosis whenever she started. And they measure like the scoliosis curve in degrees. And she, over the course of 6 months, she reduced her spinal curve by about 3 degrees, which is like huge, especially when you're that far into it and you're that aged. It doesn't really change a whole lot once you get that old. So that's just really like a testament to how much we focus on each individual person, and it's like, okay, you shouldn't do this pose because your curve goes this way. We get to know you and get to know your body so that we can give you the best practice.
How does it aid the injuries though? How does it?
It depends on the injury. It really depends on the injury. Like with scoliosis, we lengthen the spine, lengthen the muscles that are surrounding. We encourage the opposite of the curve that they have with twists and things of that nature. And we use props to really give you like we use wall ropes a lot because it gives you this focal point where your hips are here. And if you were to do, yoga, so down dog, her spine will be stretched completely long and she doesn't have an opportunity to shorten one side or the other. So it locks her hips in place and then she can stretch both sets of muscles on each side of the spine equally. So that's one way. And it all depends on what your injury is. Like if it's a shoulder thing, it's gonna be different. If it's a knee thing, it's gonna be different. But basically we try to strengthen the muscles around the injured area. And then if, a lot of times whenever you have like a knee injury or a hip injury, it's not just specific to that joint. There's something else going on. So for people who have a lot of low back pain, you'll notice whenever they stand straight up, their knees a lot of times go in towards each other or go out. And correcting that alignment in just a standing pose can help your low back. So it's just things like that. It just all depends on the person. Yeah. Anything else?
How do you use the wall ropes? Because that was like the only prop you talked about that you don't have to.
Yeah, you probably saw in the picture of our studio the black ropes that were hanging from the walls. And like I was saying with down dog, we just use them as a connection point to help you stabilize. So if you were to come into, everyone knows what down dog is, right? Where you're in a big V with your hips in the air, your hands on the floor, down dog? Yeah, okay. So in that pose, we put the wall ropes around your hips. And so if you have tight shoulders or very weak arms, you can still do the pose. So, and there's several ways, it just all depends on the pose. We can pretty much alter any pose with a wall rope or a strap or a blanket. So we really try to individualize and make your practice for your body. So yeah. Anything else? No? Awesome. Well, thank you guys.